Kuki struggle, protests, agitation, and striving for justice. The ongoing tension in Manipur, particularly in Kuki majority areas, has led to mass protests, economic blockades, and significant unrest. The catalyst for these movements has been the deployment of Central Armed Police Forces, CRPF, and Border Security Force, BSF, in Kuki-dominated areas, which the Kuki community views as biased and unjust. This situation has worsened following incidents like the Saibol attack, where security forces allegedly committed acts of aggression, including violence against women and children. These incidents have further fueled anger, leading to widespread protests organized by the Kuki Students Organization Delhi, KSOD, and other community groups. The Saibol incident, a spark that ignited the fire. The Saibol incident stands out as a key moment that exacerbated the crisis. Reports from the region suggest that members of the CRPF and BSF, deployed in Kuki majority areas, engaged in violent actions that affected not only the men, but also the women and children of the Kuki community. This aggressive response by the security forces, reportedly in the Kuki territories, caused widespread shock and anger among the Kuki people. The Kuki community, long feeling marginalized, saw this incident as the last straw. It deepened their suspicion that the central government and security forces were engaging in biased operations. The security forces, instead of ensuring peace, seemed to be exacerbating the conflict by acting in ways that many Kuki individuals saw as unjust and disproportionate. In response to this, the Kuki Students Organization Delhi, KSOD, quickly mobilized protests to demand accountability and justice for those who had suffered at the hands of the security forces. Mass agitation at Jantar Mantar and local protests. Following the Saibol incident, the KSOD organized a large-scale protest at Jantar Mantar in Delhi. This was a crucial moment in the movement, as the protesters raised slogans like "separate administration," emphasizing the Kuki community's desire for greater self-governance. They called for the removal of the CRPF and BSF from their regions, arguing that the deployment of these forces was unjust and violated the rights of the Kuki people. The Kuki protesters voiced their anger and frustration, seeking a fair and impartial response to the violence they had faced, and hoping to bring national attention to their plight. The protests were not just confined to Delhi. In the Kuki majority areas of Manipur, including towns like Saibol and Kangpokpi, the situation was equally volatile. Protesters took to the streets in these regions, calling for a complete shutdown or ban in protest of the ongoing violence and the presence of security forces. The ban in Kangpokpi town saw shops and businesses closed, and public transportation halted as the people of the region voiced their collective anger against the injustice they felt. In addition to the protests, the Kuki community also imposed an economic blockade to further intensify their demands. Moreh, a town located near the Myanmar border, was one of the most severely affected areas as the blockade disrupted trade and daily activities. Moreh, which typically saw bustling trade between India and Myanmar, became eerily deserted as the Kuki people stood firm in their protest. The economic blockade served not only to disrupt the local economy, but also to demonstrate the community's resolve in the face of adversity. The role of Kuki Inpi Kangpokpi. Amidst this growing unrest, the Kuki Inpi Kangpokpi, the community's governing body, rushed to intervene in an attempt to de-escalate the situation. The Kuki Inpi leaders, who represent the political and social fabric of the Kuki community, understood the gravity of the moment and made efforts to assess the situation on the ground. Many Kuki volunteers and community members were sending strong messages to their leaders, urging them to take a firmer stance against the aggression by the security forces. They demanded that their leaders take concrete actions in response to the violence. Particularly the reports of women and children being harmed during operations, the situation reached a boiling point when Kuki volunteers warned their leaders that they would take more drastic measures if the mistreatment of their women and children continued. This warning reflected not only the physical toll of the conflict, but the emotional and cultural weight it carried. The Kuki people have a deep-rooted sense of community and family, and the suffering of their women and children hit them hardest. The Kuki leaders were under immense pressure to act decisively, as their ability to resolve the situation would determine their political legitimacy and their community's future. The role of women and children in the conflict. One of the most heart-wrenching aspects of this crisis has been the treatment of women and children. Many reports from the affected areas suggest that women, as well as young children, were subjected to violence during military operations, a fact that has left the community devastated. For the Kuki people, these are not just political issues. They are deeply personal. The pain and suffering of their families have become a rallying point for the protests. In traditional societies like the Kuki, women play an important role in maintaining the social and cultural fabric of the community. The violation of women and children has become a symbol of the larger struggle for justice. The Kuki community has reacted fiercely to these incidents, with many viewing the attacks as not just physical violence, but a direct assault on their identity and heritage. The Kuki Students Organization Delhi, KSOD, and other groups have been vocal about their demand for justice, not just for the men who have been caught in the crossfire, but also for the women and children who have borne the brunt of the violence. The emotional weight of the situation cannot be understated, as many Kuki families have found themselves torn apart by the escalating violence. Demands for justice and autonomy. The broader demand for justice from the Kuki people is intertwined with their call for autonomy. The slogan "separate administration" has become central to the Kuki community's grievances. For many, this is not just about the presence of security forces, but a call for political autonomy. The Kuki people have long felt marginalized, and the recent deployment of forces in their territories has only deepened their sense of alienation. The demand for a separate administration is not merely an expression of anger, but a reflection of the Kuki people's deep-seated desire for recognition and self-determination. They seek an administrative setup that reflects their unique needs, protects their rights, and preserves their cultural identity. The central government's failure to address these concerns has led to a heightened sense of disillusionment among the Kuki people, driving them to seek greater political control over their affairs. This demand for autonomy is also rooted in the broader struggle for equal treatment and respect in the face of ethnic tensions. The Kuki people have long been sidelined in the political landscape of Manipur, and this sense of injustice has led to the current protests. Conclusion. The road ahead. The situation in the Kuki majority areas of Manipur remains tense, with no immediate solution in sight. The ongoing protests, economic blockades, and calls for justice highlight the frustration of the Kuki people, who feel that their voices have been ignored by both the central government and the Meitei majority. As the situation evolves, the Kuki community's struggle for justice, autonomy, and recognition will continue to shape their future. Whether this movement will lead to meaningful changes or further escalation remains to be seen. What is clear, however, is that the Kuki people are determined to stand firm in their demands and seek a future that honors their rights and dignity. To stay updated on the latest developments, subscribe to Zalingam Media.